Don should be here. Yeah, I don't know.
Don's coming, you said yet?
I'm looking at the agenda.
All right, I have to do the disclaimer about the microphones. We are having some equipment issues. These microphones do work, but you have to have them right in your face in order for the people on, pretty much, for the people online to hear you. We do have our new equipment on order. It's been on order. It's not supposed to outside voice.
Okay, and remember too that you have to make
You have to
sure
make sure
your,
the button is
your
popped
button
up.
is off.
Yep, you're good. Nope, you're good. On.
All right, we'll start off by the roll call, and I'd like to welcome Patricia. Thank you for joining us. We're pleased to have you on board. And then we've got Ed Hedges, myself, Peggy Hall, Tom Shaner,
Marty Mantonfeld present.
and Marty. Okay, so now we're just going to get in. This is a workshop to cover the high water mark for the fiscal year 26 budget. So if we look at the attachment there,
Laura, do you have the one the
Yeah,
things filled
hang
in?
on. Oh,
Is-
you're probably better off just.
is the one that's in the packet, is that the correct one, or is that?
This is the most current, up-to-date, fanciest
But not the
version.
one in the packet.
The one in the packet was the one for
Okay, so it
all the
does me
meetings
no
this
good
week
to-
and all the work that I've been doing for the last
There you go.
4
Okay.
days, so.
All right, so then, of just looking at your screen instead of any printouts
Yep,
that you
I-
might have had.
And the silos will be discussed at the board meeting this week, so
We can't talk silos?
you
at this-
can, but we'll be making the adjustments at the next Thursday. So they're just there right now, they're placeholders, they don't mean anything at this point, except for like the roads and the waterway. And there's some stuff that we have to move to admin, so again, these are not all 100% correctly. I've been doing my best just to get them plugged in, so the silos will be talked about during the board meeting.
So am I to interpret that as that whatever we put for silo placement is just going to be,
Well, it can stay there, but it could change.
It
If you
could
say that
change.
you want something to be
Okay.
whatever, it could change, or I could say, no, that's not gonna go there, because I know that that's not right.
okay,
So,
The
but these are based on just where they were for the fiscal 25.
The sheet that was in the package didn't have anything for our new Parks and Recreation that we're gonna have to expend.
Yeah, patient.
Be patient.
It's on there.
It's on there now.
Yeah, it's
All
on
right.
there. I added them before I came. There's no numbers in there yet, because I have to do the calculations. There's a placeholder.
is that something, will you be sending us out anything, or will we be waiting for after the board meeting to get a next version?
You guys will get it whenever it gets updated. I'll make sure I send it out. So you won't have to wait until your meeting.
Thank you, appreciate
I'll be
it.
sending it to all the chairs, and then you have to pull it up. We don't hand them out.
We can talk about how to
Yeah.
get that.
How to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so starting off with the silo of admin, really don't have much say or much variance in this. Everything that
Well, I'll just start up here.
Okay, yeah,
These are the shared expenses. So the thing that changed this year is that you guys are paying 17% of this instead of 14% of these shared costs. So you don't have any control over where those go.
Right.
So that's why I just blew past them. So
Okay.
these are all the shared costs up until this category right here with
Yeah, I
the
was gonna say,
operating expenses.
Get to where we can make an
So
impact.
these are expenses that are things that are specific only to Pelican Preserve. So, because it was too difficult to try to budget how much safety and security might have in attorney fees and bonds and landscape, I just did general, here's your bucket.
Okay.
If you guys have projects, this is where it goes for attorney fees. I kept it the same as last year. Again, this is up to you guys if you want to change this. I just left it what it was last year.
Do we
So-
have any idea what the actual year-to-date is on these?
I did.
Probably a hidden column from what I'm seeing.
No, there's nothing in there for that.
Oh,
What's that
I
usually,
think
in the legal, what's that usually entail?
It would be like all the stuff that we did with Tony for all those, the landscape easements and the
And
irrigation
contract
stuff that
review.
he's been working on, and any stuff that he needs to look over for you guys that's only for Pelican gets
Land
charged there.
transfers?
Sorry?
He did land transfers
land.
also?
That's like, yeah, all the easements, all of that, that was all him.
So
We have
if there was to be a discussion and potential transfer of assets, roads, park, whatever, would that, those expenses?
We would have to talk about that, because what we're doing right now, Tony's fees with what's going on over in Stony Brook is they're paying half and Gateway is paying half.
Okay.
So, if and when it gets to that point, we would have that discussion.
But Tony's fees would go.
Tony's fees, however, that would be.
Yeah,
apportioned.
whatever, if you get all or some.
But I'm looking
or-
at, thinking ahead on now, it's only a possibility that might happen in the next, should we put a budget down before that, or that's something we can't do until, because they're willing to have that discussion. And Pelican hadn't even said they really want to do it, they just wanted to discuss it.
That's your budget. So my recommendation would be to pull off, because
That's
I
kinda
don't,
where
if
I'm
it's gonna
sitting.
happen, I don't think with all the other stuff that's going
We've
on
got
this next
reserves
year,
we could cover
You
I,
could use
I would say
reserves.
maybe for 27, and like Ed said, if you guys want to, you can just pull it from your reserves,
Yeah,
if
probably-
you would go over for some reason. So I'm working on pulling up the actual.
Or the only change I would suggest is in the silo for utility irrigation, since that is for landscaping, that ought to go to landscaping rather as a suggestion.
94?
I believe that's the charges for gateway irrigation.
Okay. I'm not gonna make the changes there, because this is a copy, I'm gonna.
That's
my
fine.
actual- I agree. Then again, these were just
Yep.
plugged in there from where
The
they were
way they
last
were.
time, so.
That you mean utility
the-
irrigation along tree line?
That's for, as I understand it, it's for, gateway charges us irrigation on Prado,
Okay.
the areas that Gateway
back
provides
fence there.
irrigation, the back
Right.
part.
Anything where they have utility.
We need to see no
To answer
projection.
your question for the attorney's fees, so far this year I only have it through last week, it was $9,200.
So we're well within $20,000 budget.
We had budgeted 27,000? No,
Did that 2 years ago.
So we budgeted 20, we've spent about a little under 10 to this point in the year, so.
So we're
that's-
halfway through.
And do speak up. I know we're
You can
very
grab
vocal
that, yeah.
crowd, so don't hesitate to chime in, or if you need to stop and you want to
Yeah,
participate.
This is your
stronger.
first meeting.
Yeah.
so,
We can be a little overbearing.
the engineering fees?
I blame Tom.
Engineering fees, 40,000? What does that generally cover? Is that a number that's around 40,000?
That's depending on every project, right? We don't charge that within each
Correct.
project?
If it's project specific, like for the roads, the engineering for the road project gets
It's
charged
within
against
that.
that. So this would be, if you would have them, like when they did the pond, I think, I would have to look to see what we put there, but it gives you the opportunity for them to just do some general engineering stuff. If it wouldn't go to anything project specific, it would go there, but if they were going
Especially
to
if it
do
was
like something
preliminary.
for
Yeah.
roads, and we knew that it was like, when you go to do the mill and pave, any of their expenses for that paving project would get charged against that capital, because it's part of that. So this would be something that's for engineering fees that aren't specific to a particular other line item in your budget.
Let's just say we wanted to explore whether or not we were going to replace a bridge, and we needed to understand better about whether it was a full replacement or a partial repaving. And we might need an engineer for that, even though we weren't going to bid it out.
So that would be in the admin bucket.
For right now, yeah.
Didn't Doug have to use Tetra Tech for one of his ponds?
It was,
So yeah, any of that, because Doug is sitting out there and not talking to the microphone.
Oh, sorry, Doug.
The engineering for the pond project, for your pond stuff got charged against the ponds line, because it was all part of that work.
All right.
And this was, in the 24 budget, it was significantly higher, and we reduced it down to the 40,000 in 20.
Right,
And
okay.
I don't want to really move it, but The attorneys and the engineering fees, some attorney fees actually get charged on our financial statements too, like safety and security, whatever, but they're not budgeted.
Mm.
But that's why I don't put them there anymore, so they go in that line instead. I don't separate them out between
Okay.
those groups, they just get all put there.
Okay, well, they've shown up there in the past, I guess.
Yeah,
That's,
and it was too complicated to try to figure it out. If I had like a $90 bill to do
Okay.
5 lines to try to sort it out, I'm like, I'm just putting it against Pelican, there you go.
Back on utilities, where I agree with Ed to move it out of the admin.
Yep, I put it to
Um,
roads.
Just a question, do you project any sort of a water fee increase?
We are, yeah, our rates are set. Lee County's went up 8%. They're doing it annually every year for the next 5 years. We also had a rate increase. I believe that you guys, even with the increase, you should be fine based on where you're at so far, so that's why that didn't change. We could put a little more in if you want to, but.
Well, I'm just looking at that, trying to project if you're gonna have
Yep.
an increase anywhere, and we need to realize it. If this 11 is based on previous years without an increase, we ought to bump it. If it's got the increase built in, then it's okay.
Well, so far this year, you're at 55, so we probably should bump it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, you reduced meeting prep from 10 to 9, so why don't we up utility irrigation to 12, and that way it's flat.
Flat
Done.
then. Speaking of that, the variance that we've got between the adopted FY '25 and FY '26 proposed, why is it so much less? I mean, we're not seeing a big negative here.
You're not seeing the lines between 82 and 91, which are all the public works staff lines that are
A
allocated.
lot of them are hidden.
Oh, got it,
So
okay.
I haven't had a chance to go clean up the lines that I'm hiding to take them out
Are
of the
they,
totals.
are they moved to a different silo then, or are they?
No, they're just not in the budget this year. If you don't see it, there's no budget for this year. The numbers do add up, that operating expenses, those totals that are in there add up. Well, it's 98,700 now because I changed the 1 to 12 from 11. But those numbers do add up. So like if I take these, you can see down here, it's 97.7. So
Yep.
whatever you're seeing, this number here is correct. I have to clean out the stuff that I've hidden from these other ones. So this is not.
Yeah, I just find
Yeah.
it confusing to see a variance with
Yeah.
nothing that's subtracted. So to me, I'd like to see what go up or unhide what you're pulling out.
I will fix that. But rest assured, whatever's in the green column does add up, so.
Okay. Any other questions on the operating expenses?
Just ask them, anytime something goes down, I go, how do you do that? So I'm just, as Ed just pointed out, we had 1,000 down in meeting.
I think that's more AI now, isn't it? Aren't we moving to
Well,
an
Well,
Well,
they're
it
AI?
went
having
down
less
because you
meetings.
guys, the subcommittees are having less meetings. You missed the reminder that people in the audience aren't commenting, just the chairs.
Yeah,
Yeah. Joe, take it on.
So-
Um,
okay.
The total operating expenses, 2025 budget, 222,000. Of course, that's not an adding all of those columns.
Right.
That's a
No.
whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, it's just I have to fix the columns that are not the green column.
Okay, we won't worry about it then. Let's just go to the greens.
I've been working on populating the budget numbers for this year, and I didn't get a chance to clean up the stuff that's hidden in the other. And I didn't want to, I'll unhide them before I send the final version out so that you can see the stuff that doesn't have
Thank
a
you.
budget for this year, but there's so much that it was just easier to concentrate on the
I
stuff
got
that
it.
actually did have funds in it
So
for this
where-
year.
Where
So-
does that public works labor show up then?
It shows up,
Is that in the operational admin?
up here. Yep, it's in this
So
number.
it goes up that one?
Yep.
Okay.
And that does not include Parks and Rec, that's got its own spot. So that's just,
Doesn't include who?
does not include Parks and Rec.
Right.
Yeah,
Is that its own silo then?
yes,
Yeah.
it will be.
Okay. So I
It
think-
is its own silo and it has its own space on here, so
Yeah.
Okay.
you'll see it, it's down at the bottom.
All right, any other questions on operating?
So it's just the
expenses?
one change then that we raised this to
Right,
12.
and then the cleanup so that we don't see a
Yeah,
variance.
yeah. I'll unhide the stuff before I send it out so you can see it, and then the numbers will actually make sense.
Well, Laura said everything above this is something we don't have,
Correct.
and we just look,
Oh,
that we can comment on it and say, okay, and I don't have control, but I want to be able to go unity and say,
well, that's why when she gives us an unfiltered version, we'll be able to look fully at it.
okay.
Yeah, because I mean, this is just like the Board of Supervisors, you pay your portion, the taxes that go with that. This is attorney fees for the district as a whole, that's your portion of it. This is
Right.
all your 17%, or your,
Which
of
that was
everything.
not significant.
So, and this is, the staffing is not gonna be 17%, and just, the calculations are on, when you get the budget sheet, you'll be able to see it, it's all on the allocation tab. So,
Yep.
where these numbers
It's a
came
third.
from.
But I want to
so.
come back to that, just to ask the question, so I clearly understand, given all the discussions that have been going on last year.
Mhm.
So the budget there, we are going up $171,000 in staffing based on the new methodology. Is that correct?
As
Staff.
of right now, yes.
Well,
Well, not exactly, because you actually had costs down in this area that are
right,
not there.
It was split in two
So-
different areas.
Okay,
so-
just
Yeah,
want to,
so you did have all of those same staffing costs were down under this operating expenses, and they are no longer there. So they've been added to the part at the top.
That's why I think until
So
we
it's
can see
not,
the
there's not gonna
unfiltered
be an
ones,
apples to apples in
Yeah.
here, because you're gonna see some lines are gonna be a lot higher, some lines are gonna be considerably lower, just because of the way that we move the things around in the budget this year. I'm guessing most of this 124 is staffing.
Okay.
All right, so you're good with operating expenses with the one change?
Yes.
Okay. Safety and security provided their budget.
Okay. Jennifer, would you like to come up and, so we can have you at the mic in case we have questions?
I did go and do my math after the meeting yesterday, so this number, I put everything in the notes to the best of my ability. So it's the Wiser contract for 332 and some change, plus, this is what you pay like 13 something every month, 1,300 and something every month for the vehicle, and I just rounded it up. Cause there's holiday pay and things like that in there, cause this number doesn't include the time and a half that they get paid for working on holidays, so I just rounded up to compensate for that.
Oh, shoot.
Jennifer, that drops $90,000.
It dropped because when we put the budget together for last year, we didn't know who was winning the contract, so we didn't know what the number was going to be. So I think it was flat, if I
We
recall.
took this number plus 10%, which
Okay,
got us to
10%.
there, so.
So that's a real number based on the contract.
Based on the
Yes.
contract,
Total
yes.
cost.
And
Yes.
then, as Laura said, she rounded it up a little bit.
And what about what you were just saying about overtime, et cetera? Is that
That's,
built into
that's
this?
why I rounded up.
Just in case.
Because if you add these two numbers together, it's like 348 something. I added a couple thousand.
Is that
for
enough
overtime.
round up?
It should be.
Okay.
And then this number is for, they did increase this just because the rates are higher for the patrols, so they did add a little bit into this one.
Yeah,
What
it's
they
just,
do?
by the way, Tom, I just looked at the actuals at the end of March, and it's tracking pretty well. And yeah, FMPD raised their rates in '25.
Showing up.
Hmm?
Are
They're-
they
They are
They
showing
are
up,
showing up,
actually.
yeah.
Ticketing, giving
Okay.
warnings,
Mhm.
including the bikes.
Yeah, and we're getting the logs a lot more consistently than we had been getting before.
All
Okay.
right, so with Glover now
That's
handling your signs and going crazy, do you see the potential for any increases over there as you begin to see some of the speeders and need for addressing some of these issues?
Increases in terms of what?
Recognition of people who are speeding, where they're speeding.
Oh, you mean reporting?
Yeah.
Oh, we can do that, because we get that information, so we can put out a summary or
I'm just
something.
saying, you see any need for any dollars as you report?
Okay, I
Like
just
if
want
we
to
would
make sure
have
I'm
to
tracking.
increase,
Not for Wiser.
Well, I'm just, more the police.
I thought you,
More
so
the
you
police.
mean more
Patrols.
police patrols?
Mhm.
We hadn't talked about any increases, because we've got them coming out 4 times a month during season, 3 times a month out of season.
Yeah, let's hold that at what we had with just the increase then.
So, silly question, the
Sure.
police patrol, are we talking about City of Fort Myers
Yes.
Police
Yes.
Patrol?
And only
Yes.
inside of Pelican.
And only inside
Right.
of Pelican, and this has been agreed upon, and we want them in there that frequently.
We have
Yes.
a contract with the city to provide additional off-duty
Right,
officers. So they will be in occasionally just on normal patrol, but this, we
Correct.
pay them specifically for off-duty.
In
Police op-
addition to their normal.
Normal.
This
Right.
is in addition,
If
They
they
don't-
choose to come in and patrol, we don't get charged for that, but
and we
we
can't
have a,
control that, they do it whenever they
Whenever-
want.
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Yes, and this
We're
is
in the city of Fort
completely
Myers.
I'm sorry, and it's completely focused, I'll say 95% focused on traffic enforcement, speeding, going through stop signs, reckless behavior.
And so we feel that we need more than what the normal.
Yeah, they don't
That was
come-
the question, yeah.
They don't come in very often because when they look at what they want to be able to do, we have a very safe neighborhood from the overall Fort Myers perspective. So they're focused really on some of the areas of the city that have more crime. Most of our crime is crime of opportunity, other than the traffic issues.
All right, so then we get into the whole street lights, which,
Laura,
yeah, I'm going to need a little bit of guidance on this one from
okay,
FPLs.
let me try to explain.
Okay,
The 94,000, that got moved down from operating into here. The 94,000 last year was for, that's the Florida Power and Light monthly bills for all the lights in the neighborhoods. If safety and security basically moved to recommend going forward with converting the boulevard lights to Florida Power and Light, those will be about 9,000 a month.
and that's just the charge for rental, so to speak.
Rental and electricity and
Electricity, right.
maintenance and
Yeah, full
everything.
picture.
So we will have nothing to do with streetlights other than paying the monthly bill.
What about the capital cost of the additional wiring and conduit?
That's
They,
included.
we have to pay an upfront, that'll come up to us. We have to pay an upfront 250,000 capital and contribution in aid of construction, which actually includes half of that almost is the removal of the existing lights. But then they cover all the construction costs. That's in their monthly fee. It's part of their regulated business.
So where's that 250 at?
it's done, this line, can you see where it's gray here? They voted to do it this fiscal year and to take it from reserves instead of assigning
Right.
it to next year's budget. So you will not see that cost in your budget. It's gonna get pulled out of
See,
reserves.
now that's something I don't want to see doing. I don't want to see us going into,
We're not going into our reserve.
not going
We're
into
not going into
reserve?
our reserves.
Okay.
Reserves is one of those terms here that we need to be very careful with. We do not have regulatory reserves, correct?
Yours are all unassigned,
We are unassigned
Right.
reserves.
And
so you can use them for whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, I know that.
most of that 250 will be covered by underspending this year's budget, plus the underspend of last year's budget. They have a carry forward of about $98,000, so it's all within, it's all within safety and security,
Right.
carry forward or a current year budget
Okay,
underruns.
but as you and I spoke, I don't want to see us keeping the down by using reserves and therefore kind of kicking the can down the road.
Right.
That's all I'm
Nope.
getting at.
Well, it's not like we're funding reserves. This is money that wasn't spent in the prior years.
Right.
It's not like a reserve fund like you would have
Okay.
Right.
for other organizations. And the other thing I just want to mention is that's due when we sign. So it's at the beginning of the project. We can't, if we say we're not going to pay it until next year, then they don't start doing all of their ordering until next year. And it's going to take, we'll say a year to get everything together so that they can begin.
So we will
this-
see this come out of this year, the 25.
It'll come out of this year's budget.
You'll see the
And then
expense this
the-
year.
Right. And then that allows them to start the ordering process so that we hopefully can start construction middle of next year.
And then based on how the budget ends up at the end of the year. If they underspend by enough to cover that overage with the prior year carry forward from 24, you won't even need to dip into your reserves because they will have accomplished that by not spending as much on their other lines.
The other thing,
So-
oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, there's $50,000 in that is, they call it a deposit, but that's also kind of a weird term in my opinion. Because what it really is they've experienced that as they're going about doing their business, things can get broken. And so this is money that would help pay for those repairs that they might not have been responsible for. But they want to make sure that we're putting money aside for it so that we're not surprised and really upset at the end. So that's refundable. If we don't have to spend that money, they give us whatever's not spent. They give it back to us, and they'll account for it.
So if they're putting in new wiring and conduit and they break the sprinkler lines, do they have to pay for that or do we have to pay for that?
They break what?
If
When they
were to
break a sprinkler
They
line,
did the break.
We pay for it.
we pay for it.
We pay for any restoration activities.
But isn't restoration different than if they do something and they cause the breakage and they shouldn't have broken?
Well, I mean,
I was under the,
unless we go out there, somebody goes out and marks the location.
Which they should be
which
doing.
they should be doing.
I don't know how you mark PVC pipe. It's buried in the
Doesn't
ground.
show up on
20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
It's
We
a
can
good
do our
question.
best.
We'll
We'll
have
do
to
our
get
best.
some-
And most of
some
it will be board.
clarification.
So anyway, that's,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
This line item though, Laura, the 113, I think that it was supposed to include, I think Chelsea said to put in about the 94 plus 10 plus about 50,000 to cover 6 months. Because right now the 113 is only, right? It's,
Yeah, because if you got 6 months, I mean, it was 94 plus 10%, the 100, that's light, it's 100 plus. Then you got another 54 you have to add to that, so it seems to be the 113 light. If I'm reading that right.
right.
Wasn't this the one where, right now, we don't have, in our budget, safety and security, the electricity for the neighborhoods? We just have the electricity for the main. I thought what we would do is we were going to add in the electricity for the whole neighborhood.
That's the 94 plus 10% is the existing neighborhoods, and then the additional 9,000 for 6 months is for the new lights.
So what number do you need in there?
I think
fixed it.
157
You did get-
for,
I fixed it.
Okay, so what is it ending up in, conceptually?
157.4.
Okay, so it's neighborhoods
Yeah, she
plus
just
the
changed.
the electricity we pay, plus what, the 6 months of the new?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're flipping Tom out over here. He's seeing numbers
I didn't
change.
see change that 113, then what the hell? I know I'm not going crazy.
No, it was there all the time.
Their current projection, which we find hard to believe, is that they could actually start about this time next year and do the construction during the slow season.
So in reality, this would be less because you wouldn't have that,
Mhm.
Right.
so,
That's not gonna be-
yeah. But it's better.
We
to-
better plan for it, though.
Yeah.
You know, with summer job.
Okay.
They
So-
gave us a scenario of what it would cost if we didn't do this.
Oh,
and
I
stayed
saw that,
private,
yeah.
And let me tell you, this looks like a good deal.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have the same boat as we were over here. So yeah, you're already starting to feel it over there.
Oh,
with all
yeah.
the
We've
repairs
got a
you
lot of
spent.
things that aren't
Mhm.
working the way they
Yeah.
should.
Yeah, one after another.
Okay, anything else on streetlights? Let's move down to the gatehouse utilities. There's the same. Nothing on that? We don't feel there needs to be any increase on that?
No, you're gonna probably come in a little under budget this year, so I was comfortable with that amount.
So kind of unrelated, because I don't know what I'm saying on this. Is there a generator there? There is one at that, so we,
Yes, there is.
okay, because PPAC keeps talking about a generator, and
That's what this,
There's a
that's what this
generator
Tico gas bill
Yeah.
is for.
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. And the
came
other one they
online
talk about is
last
by the
year.
hot wire bill.
And we found out that it didn't automatically come on because the company that had come to do the maintenance the day before we needed it forgot to flip the auto turn-on switch back on, so it didn't come on by itself. So
Got it.
we did not pay for that bill, needless to say.
All right. R&M, sidewalks, signage, roadway.
That 40,000, you guys kept that the same because of the ADA ramps and the drainage?
That was,
then-
that was the speed hump, right?
No, speed hump is under, they moved that under roads.
Okay.
I put that down here. You'll get there. It's right here.
They might be.
And I did check with Mark Rothenberger today, and he felt that 17.5 should be sufficient for what you need for signs for next year.
Okay, well
So
then,
I met with him earlier.
let's just leave everything flat that doesn't have a strong reason for change then.
Yeah,
Fine.
the good thing is, if you notice here, because we didn't know for sure where the contract was gonna be, I went and figured out what you guys actually pay for the contract, and the pricing is good through fiscal 26 and 27. So this will stay flat. The only way that there would be more there would be if we have some kind of an event and they have to come and do special sweeping. I did not include that in there. I only put in whatever the contract price was. So it's possible that if you want to put a little bit in there just in case, you can, but this 9,000 will cover the contractual sweeping.
Just because the numbers are so different. The 24 had $200,000 in, right? And then budgeted for,
Because we moved it down to this line.
gotcha.
No.
Okay,
Not really, but
Well, that's
Well-
where it went.
the difference is still at 374, $74,000.
Well, this is repairs, and this is for actually like mill and pave and major projects. This would be like fixing potholes, just like minor patching kind of stuff. That's what that's for.
So the next roadway is Pelican Preserve Boulevard from Tree Line to the four-way. What's the one after that?
Oh, let's
Are we
see if I
doing
have it
two
with
next
me.
year or
no,
just
just
one?
the one.
We're
No,
just
that's gonna be,
doing-
that's probably the only one. Yeah, we have a 5-year plan.
Okay, so
I
we're
don't
only
know that I have
doing
it
one
with me.
next year, and that's the Pelican Preserve one?
It's Pelican Preserve to Venito. I actually wrote it on here. in the
Okay.
notes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I tried to be thorough in the little bit of space I had.
Hang on.
We'll have, Marty, there is a version of it in the package for yesterday's meeting. If you got it, but it's been updated. If you need an updated copy, let me know.
So I remember from the meeting, there was a 300,000 expected for the Pelican Preserve, for, resurfacing.
Correct.
Is that in here?
That's part of this number.
That's part of
Yeah,
that
it's
400?
Pelican Preserve Boulevard to Venito is included in.
Okay.
And it's
This-
up because of the questions on speed calming devices, is that correct? Is
Did we put
why
that
it's-
in there?
Yeah, you guys had me add that in there,
Okay.
take it off its own line.
No, well, okay. I want to talk about that in a little bit, but
Okay.
my one concern, and I'm not getting the number, are these numbers adding up, are your numbers at the bottom there add up? The 100 or on your 25 budget versus the 26 budget?
Well, again, there's things hidden.
Do they total right?
Um,
Is it the 1117 versus 1179? Are those right? Is it calculating in real
She
time?
said there's some hidden in the 25, right?
There's stuff hidden in 25 that's not in, that you
Yeah.
don't see.
So she wants us to concentrate just.
Not under safety and security, is there?
Yes.
What would that be?
The speed calming devices is 4,000, otherwise everything else is shown.
Oh, okay.
So yes, they total.
I guess I'm concerned about the repair and maintenance roadway. We had 40,000 in there. We haven't spent that much this year, but there's discussion items within the committee, one of cleaning the pavers at the various entrances and at the four-way stop and at the gatehouse. There's also discussions and issues about in the neighborhoods, about the stop bars and pedestrian crosswalks are so faded that you can't see them. And so we may have to do some of that maintenance. So I'm really concerned about reducing that as significantly. I know the discussion, the way that room is set up, I couldn't hear half of the
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah, you
So
were
I-
way at
So
the
I
end.
didn't interject some of that, but I know you guys, I think, reduced it based, because we hadn't spent that much this year, thinking it was just like potholes and some of that. But, you know, if we look at cleaning the pavers, or even restriping crosswalks and things like that in the neighborhood, we're gonna have to have some money to do.
They want to take it back to 40?
Well, so far this year, I know, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, your budget, but you've only used $5,000 as of the end of March. So out of 40, and we're halfway
But
through.
have they builded the entirety of the speed hump?
That's
Yes,
not the
another-
speed hump,
that's
that's,
another
I'm just
option.
talking,
Okay. That's
so
another-
for this line
Yeah,
right
and
here,
And that is completed.
Yeah.
this line, they've only used 5,000 out of the
Right.
40 so
Okay.
far, so they put it to 15.
Why don't we do budget to do that this year then, use the money here?
Well, and I've heard talk of, that we might be looking at redoing things on the outside, the entranceway, that our monuments need some work and things of that nature.
That wouldn't come out of.
That
the-
No,
would be
that
a-
comes
that
out
would be
of
another-
landscape, that's done.
Right, but there would be some things, if we redid a bunch up there, there might be road striping and things like that that would need to come out. Because that would impact,
Pelican Reserve Boulevard,
At the
not
entrance?
Pelican Product Boulevard. so you-
It's on the list.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what started the whole discussion, honestly.
And you're going to take the old ones off.
Is it gonna be good?
Hopefully.
They look better than the old ones.
About the sinking. Well, you have them at
I don't
Trias,
think
you
he
have
got
them at
invited,
the
sorry. I'm
entrance when
being
you,
a crab today.
Yeah. He
I
raised
was.
his hand, hold on just a second.
the entrance when you're coming in Pelican Preserve Boulevard. It's like going over railroad ties. It's so bumpy.
Have you done a C-click fix on that one? And I suggest we do that first before we end up putting it as a budget item. All right. Okay.
Just particular comment about,
Please announce yourself,
particular comment about
please.
Bob Gepper.
Thank you.
Particular comment, you are being like this.
You gotta put it for
A
the
particular
record.
comment about the budgets. This is just budget, not actual. In the 2023 budget, or 2024 budget, they were 100,000 plus to the good, maybe even more than that. So when the subcommittee is meeting and they talk about things like cleaning the pavers, you don't need, my opinion, you don't need to allocate new money. They've still got money left over in what we call the carryover in the reserves. So every time something is brought up, doesn't mean we got to bump the budget up.
Yeah, and that's
That's all,
understood,
just
but
a
we
thought.
also make a point of saying, we're gonna see how much we spend so that all these other things are gonna be washing through.
Absolutely.
So we're keeping an eye on that
So
one.
when you keep the budget totally flat, you still got $100,000 to play or more.
Yeah. Point taken, thank you, Bob.
All three sources.
Okay. All right, anything else on the, see how far we got here?
Just a reminder, I do need to leave at 4, so I'm just letting you know.
So,
And I
I
still have
mean-
to get this whole thing fixed and published today, so I really don't want to be working till like 8
I mean,
o'clock tonight.
Well, we'll get through what we get through.
I would like to see that bump back up just so we have something. And this is the high water. As we go through the summer, if
Right.
we need to reduce it, we could reduce it a little bit.
And I'm comfortable with that. I mean, if we believe that there are things that we need to do, let's bring it back to what it was for
Want to
25.
take it to 40, or you want to split the difference somewhere?
I mean, at one
Which line are
time,
we talking about?
90, well, not
Line
114, whatever.
114 or 1, yeah.
114?
Yeah.
and it used to be one line item that was like 80 or $100,000, but then last year
They
we
split it
split
out.
it into sidewalks and roads, just so we could start tracking how much we were spending on sidewalk repair versus road repair, rather than just having it all in
Why
one.
split the difference? I'd figure at 25 or 30, your call.
30.
30, there you
Okay.
go.
Are you okay with that, Marty?
No,
You're not okay with that?
no.
Why?
What
do you
number
want,
is
more?
changing?
Or
What,
less.
114, we're saying that instead of reducing
Or
it down
less. I don't wanna spend the
25,000,
money.
reduce it to 30,
High water mark.
line 114.
114?
You said
I
30,000?
think we should leave it the way it is.
Well, I'm more focused on, let's make sure that we've got enough at high water that we can cut if we need to.
Well, we've got our reserve accounts that we can,
I mean, we do, but let's,
it's money not
let's get
spent.
through
It's
this
money
and
that
then we can come back.
It's money that we previously budgeted to spend that we did not spend.
We haven't
Correct.
spent yet.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I think we are concerned about keeping this as clear as we can and clean as we can, right?
Yeah,
So please tell me what to do there.
I wanna know what
There's
the
not a
real costs of
consensus.
operation are.
okay. This is not a vote, but this is just a thought of,
It can only be a recommendation.
a
You can't vote,
recommendation.
So,
I would recommend we move that to 30, just to split the difference on making sure we've got enough for that. Anybody else? That he does not concur.
30 or 25, so whatever you all say.
but we can always take it down after the high water mark.
Well, that's what
or
I'm
you can
saying,
take
too.
it
This
down.
is not a-
You'll have a discussion again in May before we actually go
Yep.
to
Right.
We
do
will,
it.
and then
so
you'll
have-
bring it up again.
You'll have another
I'm sure
board
I
meeting
will.
or another, you'll have another meeting before this goes to the board to be set at the high water
Right,
mark.
right. Well, let's move it to 30
I
for now,
changed
and then
it to
we'll come back
30.
and talk about it at the meeting.
Okay.
All
So
right,
this is not set in stone. This is
Aye.
just what's going to the board this week. They have 2 meetings before they do it, adopt or approve it.
okay.
All right, so landscape is next.
Well, want to talk about the roads, the capital roads. We had, where'd it go? The 400,000. In the safety and security, we had basically come up with a program, or working on a program to spend about 300,000 a year on roads, realizing that some years it would be a little higher, some it would be a little lower. So that we basically had a 300,000 annual program. And so we had originally had in this 300,000, that's what we submitted with the capital. Daniel thought with some of the curb and gutter work and some that may need to be done on Pelican, and with the restriping and engaging Tetra Tech on this one, that the 300 probably wouldn't be enough. So he threw out, I think, 400,000. One of the options that we have, I guess it's more from us, it's, do we want to do that and have a bump up? Or do we want to say, hey, we'll fund the 300,000 out of this O&M budget, and then pull the additional 100,000 from our capital reserves? And then next year, they would then, safety and security would then basically repay the 100,000 into capital reserves and do less road construction the following year.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'd like to leave it at the 400,000 because I want to really understand what it's going to take to do Pelican Preserve, and I think we're going to learn a lot from that, and I suspect it's going to.
You'll still have the 400,000.
I understand, but I don't want to take, okay, maybe I misunderstood. I thought you were going to suggest that you were suggesting we take the 100,000 out of some kind of reserves, that we put it at 300,000. Did I misunderstand what you were saying?
You would still have the 400,000. You would still have the 400,000 for the project.
Okay.
It's just that we would fund it. 100,000 of it from capital reserves.
Okay, that's the part.
So that then the assessment is only funding the 300,000, which is
So
our
you would be
program
saying,
level.
you would be saying that this would reduce down to 300,000 with an anticipated.
No, we would actually have, Laura will probably shoot me because it doesn't go there. We would actually have a negative 100,000 in the capital project reserve.
Yeah, it will
See,
go
that's-
there, but
Yeah,
I
it goes
That's my
down. It
concern.
goes down at the bottom where other funding sources other than assessments.
Rather leave it at
And does it,
I'd
and what is
rather
the
leave it
big
in the budget,
difference in
too.
doing it that way, Ed, what would you say the big difference is?
Most of the projects that Pelican has done, and we'll have it in ponds too, is they've tried to do it as a program with a kind of a level amount every year. So,
From our
and do
operating budgets.
multiple year projects. I mean, Doug did the downspout. That was 200 and some thousand for 5 years, a year for 5 years. But what it does is it creates doing it that way as part of a program, it keeps our assessments fairly consistent, rather than, and you'll see it when we get to ponds too, rather than having a huge assessment one year and then a decrease the next year and then an increase the next year. So the idea is we've kind of looked out over the next 15 years on road replacements of trying to do about 300,000 a year as they get to the 20-year mark to resurface them. So rather than having it change assessments, bouncing up and down every year, if we fund it at that 300 and then use the reserves to create the additional amount that we need for this project, and then next year they would fund the capital project reserves for 100,000 to repay it, and then only do 200,000 worth of road projects.
See, and that's what I thought you were proposing. My preference would be to leave it at the 400. If we need to reduce it for assessment, other things for assessments, I would
We're
rather.
leaving it at 400.
But, okay, but not,
No.
I thought you were
we're-
saying it was
we're
300 in the
we're assessing-
operating,
We're
yeah,
assessing 300 and taking
right,
100,000
and taking
out
100
of
from
reserves.
reserves. I'm
It's a
suggesting,
$400,000 project, but only 300,000 would be funded through the assessments.
Right.
100,000 would come from
reserves.
capital project or capital reserves, but you would still have a $400,000 project.
No, I understand that. My concern is pulling it out of the reserves because we're pulling a lot of stuff out of reserves at the moment.
No, this
And-
is PPAC reserves, PPAC capital reserves, not
Oh, okay.
safety
Not
and
your-
security.
That's the
Right.
part,
Your
okay,
reserves.
that's the part I didn't understand. I thought
Right.
you were pulling it out of the safety and security. It's like we're running out of money really fast
No,
if we're
no.
not already negative.
Yeah.
So
No,
is
All
this-
right,
Did you discuss this at the workshop that you had
pulling it out
yesterday?
of reserve. We just talked about moving it to 400,000.
So then let's leave it at the 400,000, which was the suggestion from the committee. And then we can
I guess it's-
fine tune where we're going to pull things from in May. Is that okay?
yeah, no, that's.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
just
mean,
saw
we
our
can't
bank
decide- we
account
can't
going
decide
negative
that now.
here.
That's the,
Yeah.
Moving on.
but that would be
Okay,
the
thank you.
recommendation down.
Patricia, did that answer your?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I understood, yeah.
Anything else for safety and security? Okay,
Thank you.
you.
You guys are making really good strides, though. Thank you.
And Patricia, just so you understand, part of this that you might not understand is we have to do what they call the high water budget. And then that gets published to the community. And
That's a
they do-
notice that goes out to
and they
every
do
homeowner.
a calculation of water assessments, and then you get a notice of here's what your potential assessments are going to be.
Here's where the public hearing is.
And then there's
Yeah.
public hearings, but then we can reduce the budget before it's finally adopted. We just can't increase it
Got it.
above that high water budget.
All right, moving on to landscaping. You guys had a meeting
Yesterday.
yesterday?
Yep.
Yep.
And this, most of the whole decrease in this budget is that shift. We updated the amount that's inside the gate, and then that 170, it was right around 206,000, I think, that we moved. That'll be that shared cost that's going outside the gate that will not be assessed into your fund here.
But it will be
Right.
assessed underneath the
The
other shared
Yeah, so
admin,
we
whatever.
did get updated. They came
Laura, where's the 388 come from?
That's the Mearscape contract minus this for the next year. We got updated numbers if you see my note.
The original contract
We have
was,
updated numbers from Ameriscape.
Okay, but-
So,
the contract was right at 350 for inside the gate, the original one?
yeah, but we have updated, they redid the maps.
But
and they
that
gave
should,
us new
that should
numbers.
reduce. The number should have reduced for inside the gate.
From-
There's
from
there's an
350.
increase for next year for, they have the automatic percentage that it goes up.
Is that like 4% or
It's
something?
3 or 4.
3.
Those, we just got these updated numbers, because we did ask them, the original contract, I don't think included all those parcels that we took on with those easements and asked them to maintain, and shipped it over to us. So there's been a lot of like little add-ons here, add-ons here, add-ons here, and so that's where this came from.
And is this official? That's their official quote back to
We
us
just
then?
got the stuff, like, late
Okay.
yesterday afternoon or this morning, it came
Okay.
over.
So
Okay,
I was
okay.
able to attend that meeting too. It was
Good.
really, really interesting, and I appreciate being brought in at this time. It's been so
Okay.
really educational. I wrote down 415,000 will be the new Ameriscape contract because tree line is being removed from
Okay.
the landscape.
Right.
Okay, okay.
So
So I guess year two, I was thinking year one was the 415, but it's the 427 on contract for year two. So it's been reduced to 388.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
all right.
That fly with you, Patricia, from what you saw?
And then they pretty much decided to keep everything the same. The tree trimming I did challenge a little bit because it seems like it was a little high. There was some consolidation. These two orange lines here became this yellow line down here. So we took the plant replacement and tree and sod replacement and just created a landscape replacement line because that way we don't have to keep track. Was it trees? Was it sod? Was it plants? It doesn't matter. It's all landscaping.
Okay.
And it'll just go against that line instead. So these two orange lines here will go away and they're replaced. If you look, that adds up 53 and 32 is 85. So,
Okay.
so
we're
the decrease in their budget this year is solely this one line item right here, the contract.
Of which we'll get a portion of that in another factor, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And on this one, I think I think the monument signs should be to the admin silo rather than roads, but
Monuments and signs,
that's the neighborhood monuments
Oh.
and the Pelican.
oh, that's the, when they can apply to get the 2,500 for monument. That is,
And monument maintenance, and the shared entry feature ought to be to admin as well.
But they're on roads, which is why they're in the roads.
Right.
We'll have that discussion on
Yeah.
Thursday next week.
okay.
So that's why they're in the roads, because that's the way that we handle them, and all the rest of the gateway is because they're in the roadway, even though they are a monument, but they're part of landscape and they're part of the roadway. Well, you see them when you're on the road, so that's why they ended up there. Doesn't mean they're gonna stay there,
Okay.
but that's how they ended up there.
But this is pretty much then a flat budget other than the
The deduction for.
deduction for the
yep,
outside
for
the
that.
gate?
Yep.
Okay. All right, moving on.
Doug, if you want, you can come and plunk your butt over there next to Marty if you want, and you got a microphone, if you don't want to stand. Jennifer, I should have you come up here too.
I'm okay with that.
Oh, I don't know.
Make sure your buttons,
Two troublemakers in one spot, that's not good.
I don't know, you got Tom over there too.
Three,
You don't need a microphone here.
Probably not, make sure,
yeah, all right.
just make
So-
sure you announce yourself for the record before you talk, so we got it.
Doug Zander, the chair of the Ponds Group Subcommittee.
So Doug and I got together, last week? Yeah, last week. I went over all of these. The only question that I know from our standpoint is, what is this for? Because,
Which one?
the downspout initiatives, this line here.
Well, as an example, right now, we have some of the, from in the easement area where some of the drains are plugged.
It's maintenance.
So we have to go in there at times and do spot repairs that occur on the 50-some ponds. There's a certain amount that occurs every year, and that's in, to just do that type of
So repairs and maintenance on the drain boxes, basically.
drain, because we are responsible from the easement to the pond for the the drainage into the pond.
Okay.
So-
It should be R and M.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
let's
change
not,
that.
let's change initiative
Yeah, I'm
to,
gonna change it
All
to
right.
something else.
Okay.
Okay?
The,
Why does the stormwater system
Because last year we cleaned all the drains.
have
They-
any need for it?
No, we were doing a third. The year before, last year, we did an inspection of all the drains, all the storm drains, found out which ones had debris in them. So then, before we were doing a third, and most of those drains didn't even have any debris in them. So last year, we only cleaned drains that had debris in them. So we did it once and did them all instead of a third.
When do you think it'll need to be?
We're expecting probably in 4 years, we'll do an inspection again. The only thing there is sometimes an individual drain will get plugged up and you might have to fight with a person put a pool in, filled up a drain with sand, or an irrigation leak fills up a drain with sand, and you have to go in and clean that out. That's what that little bit amount of money is for.
The homeowner's not responsible for that?
Well, it is, but in the meantime, do you wait as you fight through that, or do you clean it and then go back and get the money?
okay.
um,
Laura,
you've
Laura,
got a- oh, I was just gonna say, you've reduced down oh, no, you've increased, thank you. I was reading that wrong. I was gonna say, we're gonna have a lot of littoral replacements. We need it to be
Okay.
higher.
Much of it's sitting out there.
okay,
But I don't know where it's going to end up, but we did the bid on 47 and 48. And littoral replacement was not part of the bid. The bid that was won by Extreme Divers, even though the bid did not have it in there, Extreme Divers claims that littoral replacement is in their bid, in their price. Well, I just want to say, the formal bid they did, littorals were not in it.
Let's just make sure that they're
Okay,
aware.
so we might, right, I know I've talked
Okay.
to Brett, and he still thinks that,
Well,
that's
less
in
is
there.
hard, that's all
Yeah.
I can say.
I, what else? We could, the biggest thing here is, well, first of all, to make Bob happy, if we make 305 and versus 300, so it's a flat budget year to year. He wanted them all to be flat. I don't care.
this,
5K is not that much.
Where is that?
Where it's 300, I had originally had 305.
okay,
Okay, just so that at the bottom is 804, it's the same as it was.
this is,
But it says 799,
I know, because it says 300 instead of 305.
so you wanted to.
I mean, over
Okay.
there, Laura talked me out of 5K
Okay.
when I met in her office.
let,
I was easier than meeting with Marty.
Well, he said he wanted to do 600,000 and split it equally over 2 years, so that's only 300, not
No.
305. so-
Right.
All right,
okay.
that's got something.
Let's talk this pond. It's estimated to be a $600,000 project.
43 next year.
Well,
What-
we had planned to do half the pond for 300,000 in next year, and the other half the following year, 300. Okay? But I'm okay with what you're saying, because
Well,
you and I have met.
I haven't said it yet.
Well, you did to me.
Let's hear it.
Okay. I don't like the idea of doing half upon one year and half upon the next year. It's very disruptive to everybody around that pond. Let's do one project. It was presented as the capital of 600, but like I was saying, let's fund 300 of it this year. Use 300 of PPAC's capital reserves to fund this, half of the 600 projects. So 300 would effectively come out of assessment, 300 from capital reserves. And then next year, Doug can pay the 300,000 back out of his,
Then you'd have
Capital
300 in
project
your
reserve.
budget next year.
he'd have
Yeah.
still have 300,000 in the budget next year,
But he knows it's already spent.
but he's not doing a pond next
And he
year.
Right.
knows it's
And we
spent.
do.
So we will not do any ponds next year,
for
after the
27.
following year, and then we'll pay the loan. I just think we loan from reserves and we
But
pay
in
it
terms of
back.
budget, your budget's 3.
Yeah,
Well, the
It'll be
budget would be
yeah.
600, But then there would be a funding from.
This is the same conversation I had with Doug, so, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we put, it would be at 600 here, but on the bottom of this sheet, way at the
Right,
bottom,
right.
there's a
It
line
would
that
say
says,
300.
use
We would
of
say
other
300
funding
for capital.
sources,
Right.
and I would
You
put
can
300
show
negative
that.
there, which would offset it,
You can
yes.
show that for a budget purpose?
Yep,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can show you where it is.
Yeah.
It's
No, that's okay, I just want to make
it's
sure you
right,
can show it.
it would be right here, this line, this use of carry forward.
Okay.
I would just put it here, and then it would subtract
Or
it. So
use of
that, the
capital.
challenge it is, we have to make sure we take it out of the right silo based on
Right.
where the project was done. But yes, I can absolutely do that. We've done that before.
I just can't see going into a neighborhood and
that's the
doing
same thing I
half the
said.
pond one
Just
year,
do
and
it.
half, then coming
That
back
makes
and
sense.
doing the next, so.
So how much do we save on mobilization fees?
That's a very good
That,
question.
that was what I had brought up as well, because they have to mobilize and twice.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Communication, disruption.
Yep.
So how much are we saving by doing all?
5,000.
Well, it's.
Wait,
they'd
with
have
the
to
600,000
That's a
re-engineer it, right?
swag.
It'd have to be a
Yeah,
full
we don't-
re-engineer.
no, we didn't, as far as I know, the plan when it went out was not to do half and half. The plan was for the whole pond.
It was
So-
600,000 was estimated of the whole pond.
Right.
So there really is no reduction in mobilization. We probably would have got hit with more expense if we did split it up for mobilization.
Because,
that
I
we
mean,
will
you
not be hit
potentially
with.
have dewatering and all that too for
Yeah.
each time, where this way you
Oh,
just
no,
have
we'll
it
just
once.
lower the weir.
Yeah,
Could.
that'll work.
Because we've had no pushback on that.
Right. The only thing I
Bob's
will
got his
say,
hand
just everything on the, put it out there, is the fact that most all of our stuff is bids, is contracts we have in place.
Right.
The pond maintenance, the aeration in the fountains, the maintenance on the conservation areas, we're in the process right now of bidding all of them. So we don't know how the bids will come back yet, because they're just being bid now. I'm expecting them to be higher with the bid process because the terms add cost. And so I'm expecting them to be a little bit higher, but I'm gonna have to find a way to take it out of other line items to pay for them.
Okay, but if the reality is we think it's gonna go up 5%, I mean, what have we seen in other contracts?
Yours are a little unique because you've never, except for 36, that was the first one that we did with the formal bid process over there.
The only
So-
one we did formal bid was the conservation area, and we seen, at that time, we seen our costs go down significantly because we had woods on wetland that were charging us
Yeah, they
double
were
what they
robbing
should
us
have.
blind.
We were being robbed dry.
Are we bidding this the Pelican Way or the Gateway?
This is a
Gateway.
big gateway, this is a
Because of
full
the cost.
contract.
We
so-
don't have a choice.
It's-
Where
it's-
two of the bids are going with the ITQ, the simple, and just so you know, I just been working on the ITQ. There's like 15 pages. It's not bad.
Oh.
It's 1 page of terms, of specifications, and the rest is standard gateway terms. So it's not 60 pages like we had with the last time we went through, we had 60-some pages for the 47 and 48. It's nowhere near that. It's nowhere near that.
So what was the verdict on the pond? Are we putting
Hold
it
on,
at 6?
did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to, have a question for Doug,
Okay,
because I want to make sure we're protecting the ITQ. But on the pond we're talking about, that's going to be 600,000. ITQ was never on the table.
No, it's too high.
Is that correct?
Correct. Well, we had planned to do the formal bid process
Okay, then-
on 43,
Okay.
yeah,
okay?
that's it.
Then I totally agree with what Ed said, do it in 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, because of the cost, we have
Right.
to. Even if you
Yeah.
were to do it half and half, we would
It's
still
still
have
over.
to because it's
Half
over the
would still
threshold.
Because of
so-
that, Bob, we've already started to work on that because of the length of time is longer for the formal bid.
Yeah,
So your
All right.
recommendation is change that line to 600 and then offset it on the bottom with the 3?
Yep.
Correct.
Got it. All right.
And we will not, the following year, we will not do a pond.
oh, you can take a
But you
break.
will show 300 in your budget.
But
Yes.
I shouldn't,
Yes.
it all depends on where this FEMA money, if the FEMA thing comes through, in fact, we might even not do a pond next year with this budget if FEMA comes, I'm not holding my breath.
If we don't get rain, we don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
This isn't a college loan, Doug. You
Yeah.
have to pay your loan back.
Well, not if you don't take it.
Degree in philosophy.
Okay, that's all I have.
Now, the flowway,
Yes.
this is probably more of a Laura question. under the new methodology, the flowway gets put into a separate group, that our flowway dollars and gateway flowway dollars get combined and then reallocated. So I don't know how you're going to do this in the budget, but I assume that we're going to, when Russ went through it from the 25 budget, we ended up having an additional like $1,300 or something like that. But I assume there's going to be, there needs to be some sort of line item. We're going to get allocated a certain small percentage of the gateway flowway costs, I would assume. So don't we have to budget for that in?
Well, you don't, but I will be. Yeah, you'll get that as a shared cost. Those
But
allocated
it,
costs.
doesn't it have to be in our budget?
It will be. Yeah, it's not in
Okay,
there yet.
okay.
Yes.
So
So
there will
it
be,
will be
actually
going
be
up.
another line item that
Yeah,
will be
like
like an
similar to where I have
allocated.
the Parks and Rec stuff down here now. Some of this needs to
Okay.
get taken out because there actually isn't a budget for it. And the pool is just part of Parks and Rec. Those have been added in, and I know that there's a couple other shared costs that need to be added into that bottom part.
Okay,
So.
Can I
because the
chime in?
application- Yep.
Sure.
okay.
So Pelican pays for Flowway 6. The rest of the flowways per the contract, it's about 25.5. So Russ is going to have to do some calculations on the back end on how that gets shared amongst exactly what Laura said. So yes, Ed, you will be paying a small portion of the 25.5.
Right.
25,000.
20, yeah,
Yes.
25,500.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Doug and I were talking, and because this only gets done once a year, we can set up a separate line for it, but I'm okay just putting it in with part of the R&M for the stormwater system. Because if we need to break it out at some other time, if something changes in the way we allocate the costs, I can absolutely break it out. But this is gonna be a one-time charge. It's not like it's something ongoing, it's just gonna hit once. So we would just put it up here and not add this line. And just put that it includes the maintenance on Basin 6 flowway.
Would that be
But if
okay
you
with
put it
you?
into that, how's,
This doesn't get shared. This is your cost. You are responsible for the Basin 6
I know, but
flowway.
it gets put into the total of this plus Gateway's funds get allocated, and then we get a credit for our 12.
I can leave it separate. It's fine.
I just
This isn't a shared
think for
cost, though. This is a,
transparency and
this
going
is-
through
this is
this
a Pelican
whole
only.
budget
Well,
thing.
let's just leave it the way that it is now
these
then.
costs here are Pelican only.
Yeah. If it's ours, it's a one-time charge. We will just note that it was a
One-time charge
one-time.
each year.
Yeah,
way-
okay, so it's an annual charge.
Yeah.
This,
So
Bob
then
Dever
let's leave
again,
it up there.
the way the board settled it was when Russ first made his presentation on flowway, there was no regard for the flowway we call Basin 6. This formally recognizes that we've already been paying for this year after year after year, and the amount that we pay baked into the previous numbers was
Mhm.
12,000.
Okay. Then let's keep it called out for
Yeah.
now,
Okay.
and then we can modify.
So we're
it
not
next
adding
year.
a cost to
Right.
Pelican. We've always paid it, but
Yep.
we're getting a credit for that.
Okay,
So we're not
On
paying
the
more
other
for
side.
it.
And just so you know, in prior years, it was covered under, as an ad hoc contract underneath the lakes, which would be the 135 number, that first number.
Okay.
It was just an ad hoc contract underneath
under
there.
that, okay.
Yeah, we just got the bill once a year for
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
Just,
I don't care.
to me, it makes sense as we go from year to year to year. If this number changes, as Gateway's flowway cost numbers change, it makes it a lot easier to
Yeah.
have the spreadsheet, keep track of it and
It's fine.
allocate it
I'll add it.
properly.
all right, we'll
Let's
keep
move
it there
on.
then.
Yep.
Move on,
Move
That's it.
on.
Yep,
All
That's
right.
all you
Okay.
got.
that's it.
Yep.
Nope,
Nope, okay, what else do we
What else
have?
you have?
go down to the bottom, Laura.
Well, I mean, when will we get these parks and swimming pool numbers?
No, go, or, not that far
I'm
down.
sitting next to you, Bob.
Okay. The
Thank you,
ca-
Doug.
capital outlay for the admin construction.
Mhm.
I assume there has to be something in the 26 budget for that, at least.
No, because you had it from 25 and we haven't, it's possible that we'll use it. We'll just keep track of it. It'll carry forward
But it
into
has to be,
26.
doesn't it have to be, it's not going to get spent this year.
Right, but it will keep it. It'll just carry forward. So we're not going to reassess it. You've already been assessed.
Right, but shouldn't it be in, what's the actual, shouldn't it be in the budget and then the use of carry forward that we already, that?
I
the
don't want to
20
put it in there again because we assessed it in 25 and didn't use it. So we'll just
We-
use it for,
We didn't assess that. We used our
Reserve.
reserves
okay.
to pay our carryover to pay
To
that. It
offset
was
it.
not assessed.
Okay.
So it was
Yeah,
offset.
it was offset.
And it's, and don't we need to, I mean, to me, there's a new estimate that wasn't included in this, so I think the admin building is going to be more, our share is going to be more than the 265. So whatever that new cost is ought to be in the 26 budget, and then we use the 265, 480, carry forward into 26, and then we have an assessment for the incremental additional cost of the admin building.
I'd like to keep showing it in the budget line items just so we can see the effect of this in the new methodology.
Laura, can you add in the notes, can you add that this was funded through the reserves, just so we can make that clear?
Yeah, we funded several things with our reserve, our
Yeah, the error and the-
undesignated. And because there was this plus the 200,000 math error that we used
Right.
and some of that. So to me, it's,
Let me talk to Stephen Bloom and see what his thoughts are on the best way to handle this, because I don't think putting it in there and subtracting it out again is the right way to handle it, but I will check with him because he's our controller and I'll see what his thoughts are on the best way. I understand what you're saying.
we at least.
But let me
we-
check with him and see what the best way to handle it is.
And
I
I'm
don't,
not
because
saying-
getting the subtractions are extremely complicated with the new assessment methodology, so I'd rather not have to do extra work on the bottom because we've already accounted for that 265,000. So I'd rather not put it in there again for 26 and then take it out again for
Well,
26.
But we,
So-
How
but,
you account-
But let me run it past Stephen
Okay.
and see what his thoughts are.
but but there was a new estimate of the building when they signed the contracts that said we were going to need to pay about another 150,000. So at least that ought to be in here so that gets assessed.
Laura, I'm confused. You've accounted for it only in terms of having seen the budget. You haven't done any action on it yet because we haven't spent that yet, right?
Correct.
Right.
So.
But the funds are available right now in the 25
I got
budget.
that. They're in one of our,
So what happens, it's encumbered because we've set that money aside. If you don't spend it in 25, it carries forward into 26. So I don't want to assess it again because we've already accounted for it in
but we never
25.
assessed it.
But we've accounted for it in the
But we
25
never,
budget.
but we never assessed
We
it.
have a line item with dollars set aside in the 25 budget.
Right.
If we don't use it in 25, it'll carry forward to
Okay.
26.
I'm being a little hard-nosed here, I know, but I'd like to see all of these true numbers for this year be there, because I want to see what the major difference in the true assessment is under the methodology.
What do you
I
mean
agree.
true numbers? I don't understand.
Well, I want the 265 plus 150, if that's what Ed's saying, under the budget. And I realize that's raising the budget and the potential assessment to the community. But I want them to see what this methodology is doing to them.
But what you're asking me to do is to conclude that number again when we included it last year. So
No.
let
You
me,
did-
please let me run it by Stephen
All right.
and
I
get
don't
his
think we
thoughts on it.
included
I will have this for you at your meeting on the 8th.
In my estimation, what it should be is the capital outlay for the admin should be 265, 480 plus the 150 or whatever the numbers are.
Sure.
And then there should be a use of carry forward of 265, 480.
Which we did in the 25 budget.
Right. Because
So let me, please
bud-
just let
the
me run it by Stephen.
got
I understand, I understand what you're asking me to do.
'Cause
Let me
that
run it by
budget-
Stephen.
the
He's the one
25
that's
budget's
ultimately
gone.
responsible for all of that. So let me see what his
You know
thoughts
where
are.
I'm coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand what you're asking. So
If
let
I
me,
can chime in, Tom, if you just heard what Ed said, the 265 number wouldn't have impacted the assessments either way because you guys used reserves. So to try to compare that to what you're talking for next year, you wouldn't see that 265 assessment number because you guys did not assess it. You used reserves.
And I'm saying we didn't use the reserves, so we still have it sitting there, and I don't want to use the reserves to do that. I want to see what the real budget is under the new assessment methodology. I don't want to use reserves in any capacity next year.
So you're saying you'd like to go back and revisit where we pulled it from in 2025?
Yes.
Huh.
It hasn't been spent. I understand what you did to make the budget that you did. But it sounds wrong that I'm saying I want to have a higher tax, but I want to see what that real number is, and then we can play with it.
But it, like what Ed said, though, it wasn't actually assessed in 2025, it was offset by the reserve. So if you asked me to add it into the thing, then you're actually assessing it where you didn't assess it in
Correct.
25.
Correct.
So you're inflating your assessments.
I'm not
Compared to
inflating it. I'm
last year,
making it a
because
real
he's
assessment.
trying
I'm not
to-
using reserves to pay for it.
Yeah, he's trying to have all the costs that are associated with the building be transparent versus partial.
Well,
Understood.
not
Let me,
exactly.
let me talk to Steven and
Not
see what his
exactly.
recommendation is.
Say that again.
He's trying to have the new methodology transparent.
Yes.
Okay, yes, that's a fair way to put it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, let's see what Stephen has to say. But yeah, I do think it's important that we have a very clean budget this year so that anything that changes, we can point back to say, this is methodology, this is increase in services, this is a decrease in services. So that's my preference. So, anything else that we've got?
If nothing else, it would be in there for, and it might be high for, it's the high water mark. We
So
could,
Laura-
we could then decide
To, once
if we
again,
wanted to
fill it
use
out.
the,
For the,
continue to use the reserves to fund the initial, we could still do that before it's adopted in the fall.
for the meeting minutes for this workshop, we're going to include this spreadsheet, not the one that was included in the one that went out,
Yes,
correct?
please. Yeah,
I just want to make that clear.
yeah, there'd be no.
We don't
purpose to-
include workbooks with the minutes, but
Yeah.
I couldn't hear you.
we don't include workbooks with the minutes, we just have minutes.
But this will be,
So
this
where am I going to
spreadsheet-
be able to look at this? Because that's not what was included in the notice.
This will be in the board pack, which will get published today,
She's gonna.
so
bring
you'll
up
have it,
today.
because this is what's going to the board.
And
So
do
no
we
matter
get
what
a
This will be in
copy?
the board.
Based on what Ed is saying, that
It's the same as when we have the things with the board, when I bring a budget workbook to the board and we make changes during the meeting, I don't republish that, it just goes, then the revised one goes to the next meeting.
and then at our next meeting, if
You'll
we
have
want.
whatever,
we'll
you'll have your changes plus whatever the board, if
board
they
did.
make any,
So we'll
that'll
see
be
a
at your
combined
next
of
meeting.
that.
So just going back to what Ed was saying, let in that, you hear what I want to do with the 265. Should we show 150 under the budget if that's a new anticipated outlay?
I have to verify that,
Yeah.
but yeah, if that is a newer cost, then yeah, because I don't have that on any of the stuff, it's not assessed to the enterprise fund or the general fund or yours right now.
Yeah, because you guys
So-
would need to have a
Yes.
larger portion of that.
Correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions on this? This has been very helpful. All right. Everybody good? Can I have a motion to close this workshop?
Well,
Oh, hang on, Marty's got a question.
Patricia, make your motion.
Marty's
still
already
have a
interjected.
question.
Okay.
So where will I be able to look at this?
You will be able to
spreadsheet that
see
you
the
have
updated
to
sheet that we
reflect on
worked
what
on
we
today,
discussed?
will be in the board pack.
It will be
The
in the
sheet that I
board
did
pack.
today will be in the board pack, that as soon as I can get this compiled, will be published.
When will the board pack be out?
It was supposed to be done yesterday, but we delayed it because of today's meeting. So it'll be out there today,
And
tonight.
how will the board pack numbers reflect in this park and recs and swimming? They have real numbers?
No, because we're gonna go over
Nobody
that.
knows it yet?
Right.
Okay.
So the only change is that the updates will be all the things that we went over in the meeting
And
today.
how will the board pack reflect what we're discussing with 265? If you can't answer it now, because you got to talk to Steve.
Well, if the workbook will have the number, not have the number in there, but I will have that information by the time we have the board meeting next week. So this is a living document. It is not a
No, I
set
got
in
it.
stone,
I got it.
so this is not even a version 1 official yet. So this is like truly a rough draft of the budget.
0.5. Do we have access to the board packet?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
I
on
will
the
show you where
website.
that is
Yep.
afterwards. But we'll-
That's why I
we'll-
think your question is, when are we gonna have access to
Yeah.
it?
When they put it on the face on their.
On the
Make a motion to
website,
adjourn
yeah.
the workshop.
Oh, Marty jumped you. Do you want a second?
Because we want our name in the records.
Wait, second from Patricia. All in favor?
The second picks up the drink bill.
Yeah. You weren't supposed to tell her that. All right, thank you all.
An hour and 20 minutes.
I know.
Yeah. Oh,
All right, so.
Flip-flops is calling.
I need to know how to get access.
She's
Yes,
in line,
I
so we
will
can
show
see
you.
her.